welcome to the Royal Rota podcast. Now we're back in the office. We've actually flipped. We had a debate before we came in because Lizzie's there, I'm here, and last time I got the studio, she got the office. But I thought it was only fair that we just flipped it today.
So you're in the broom cupboard.
I'm in the broom cupboard where the Wi-Fi reception apparently is quite bad. Now, given this office is occupied by our head of digital, I'm surprised to learn that he's got bad Wi-Fi in his office. So if at any point you can't hear me or I go a bit like a Dalek, like that, then you'll know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just have to pick up and keep going.
Now, we're in the office because today we've been discussing and reporting on Meghan Markle's significant victory over the Mail on Sunday. We will discuss that at length during this podcast, so stand by. But there's been other things. The Queen's got a new great-grandchild in the household. There's lots to discuss about living rooms. I mean, it's just a week of eclectic mix of royal news, court cases, living rooms, babies, and how much do you know about what the Queen did in the 1970s?
Yeah, and you're running the real risk of doing my Robinson's Royal Rundown for me.
Oh, well, mine was a very generic sort of look over what we are going to discuss, and but I wouldn't in any way want to take away from Robinson's Royal Rundown, which is a fixture of this podcast, and I don't think people would tune in such great numbers were it not for Robinson's Royal Rundown. So you better do that, otherwise people are going to be switching off in their droves.
Yeah, they do that bit and then switch off because they've got their summary. So as you say, this week Meghan had a comprehensive win in her case against the Mail on Sunday over the publication of a letter to her father. There was some lovely, happy royal baby news. Princess Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank had a baby boy. Camilla and Charles had their first COVID jab. They're of course in their 70s, so they're part of the age group just being called up. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge held a video call with nurses. There was a lot of talk online about Princess Anne's living room, unexpectedly. And as you say, questions over the Queen and the law.
The Queen and the law, yes. She's kind of like the Queen and the law. It's quite a big subject matter. Discuss, but we'll get to that. I think we should probably start there with the Duchess of Sussex. I mean, it's why we're in the office today. It's potentially the lead story on News at 10 tonight, which is why we're doing this podcast here. As you say, significant victory. I mean, the choice before the judge, the High Court judge, Mr. Justice Warby, was, does this go to a full trial in the autumn, or do I make a summary judgment now based on what I've heard thus far? He went for the summary judgment and decided that there was a comprehensive win for the Duchess of Sussex. Her privacy was breached.
Yeah, so the Duchess, the case would have been held in the autumn. It had been pushed back for confidential reasons until the autumn. And she then applied for this summary judgment to mean that it didn't go to full trial and that it could be decided by the judge with the facts laid before him. And he decided that he did have enough before him to be able to give her a comprehensive win. Bar one small issue, and that was over whether Meghan was the sole author of this letter. And he said that this was an issue of minor significance in the overall context, but that issue should be pursued at trial. But everything else was. And that's
because, as we've discussed on the podcast before, because she shared draft of this letter with Jason Knauf, the former head of communications at Kensington Palace at the time, and therefore is the copyright hers, or is it also jointly his? But as Team Sussex have been telling us this afternoon, actually what the judge basically says was, yes, Meghan, you won on copyright. It's just whether or not Jason Knauf also wants to sue the Mail on Sunday because he might share some copyright the letter. Well, that's the issue in hand.
Yeah, and I'm sure huge relief all round tonight for both the Sussexes, but also members of the royal family and staff who, things would have been pulled through the courts, people would have been called up as witnesses. So I'm sure they are relieved tonight that this has been concluded.
Yeah, because I mean, we've just discussed this on the evening news. If you think back about the High Court case between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, you don't necessarily remember who won. You might not remember why Johnny Depp took the son to court in the first place. You do remember all the dirty laundry that was aired between that couple and the state of their relationship over a number of years. And I think that was the danger, always going to be a danger in this thing going to trial, was Thomas Markle. And he'd said this to the Mail on Sunday's lawyers, that he was prepared to fly over to the UK and to give evidence at the High Court against his daughter. Now, that would have been some spectacle and a half.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it was going to be, was billed as that blockbuster trial, wasn't it? That it would be Markle v Markle. And, you know, I think that's actually what's quite sad about all of this, is actually it just shows the huge deterioration in their relationship. I mean, you know, we know it hasn't been good since the wedding, but it just shows how bad things are.
And it remains the case that Thomas Markle has neither met Prince Harry, nor has he met Archie, his grandson. Whatever significant legal victory this is, and it is a legal victory for the Duchess of Sussex, it is a personal loss. I think most people will agree about that. We spoke to an expert in media law, Georgie Collins, for one of our programmes tonight. Just have a listen about what she said about the case and why the judge decided this was pretty much a straight up and down case. Did you breach Meghan's privacy or didn't you? And the judge decided, yep, it was that straight up and down, and the Mail on Sunday did breach her privacy.
At its heart is the publication of what is said to be a very private letter from a daughter to her father.
And of course, Meghan is now saved from having to face her father in court.
This is one of those cases where, you know, people often don't remember who won or lost. They just remember all the dirty washing that was aired in public and what the upshot of that was.
So there was a statement from the Duchess of Sussex herself, which her office gave to us, which, as I keep pointing out to people, her office and Harry and Meghan continue to communicate with us. They have blocked some members of the press in the UK, the tabloids. You won't be surprised to hear the Mail is one of them. But they continue to cooperate with us, and we got a statement from their office this afternoon from the Duchess of Sussex saying, well, actually, she called the Mail on Sunday's actions illegal and dehumanising practices.
She did, yeah. It was quite a lengthy statement, and she said that for these outlets, it's a game. For me and so many others, it's real life, real relationships, and very real sadness. The damage they have done and continue to do runs deep. The world needs reliable, fact-checked, high-quality news. What the Mail on Sunday and its partner publications do is the opposite. It went on, and she
basically said this is a win for everybody, wasn't it? I share this victory with each of you because we all deserve justice and truth. And she said that the comprehensive win on both privacy and copyright, we have all won, she said. So I think she's trying to say, look, on a privacy issue here, this is a loss for the tabloid press and a win for individuals.
Yeah, and that's the second win for the Sussexes in as many weeks. Last week we spoke about Harry being in court with the same publication over claims that he had turned his back on the military, and he had a win there and received damages. We've had a win today for Meghan, and I think that we've seen since they have walked away as working members of the family that they're not afraid to take publications and organizations to court when they feel that that what is being printed or done towards them isn't fair or right. So they have not shied in doing that.
Yes, we know that Harry's giving the damages he got from the Mail on Sunday to Invictus Games. We don't know about Meghan yet because actually there's another court hearing on the 2nd of March to determine some of these issues surrounding costs. But given that the Mail's lost on the issue of privacy, the issue of copyright, one imagines that the costs will be pretty high. Do you remember we had a court one of the hearings when they were discussing the cost and they ran into the many millions of pounds, didn't they, in terms of legal costs? You know how much lawyers charge, much more than I charge. So it's going to be a pretty big financial hit for the Mail on Sunday. unless they appeal, which they have. By the way, we should read you the statement from the Mail on Sunday, which is essentially that they're surprised by the judge's decision and that they are considering whether or not to appeal.
Yeah, and I think this isn't for Harry and Meghan, this isn't about money. It's about a point of principle, and they're taking a stand when they feel they've been wronged, and I think that they will continue to do that.
Yes, I suspect there might be more developments or bigger fallout from this over the coming days, and we will bring that to you. As ever, the places to get our royal news in the week when you're not listening to this podcast is on the website itv.com/news. Then there's a royals page if you click on the topics, and there's actually a whole section dedicated to Meghan Markle, actually, if you just want news about her and not about the rest of the royal family, which some people might. But anyway, so a big victory and a very big story, I think, here in the UK and wider afield. I'm trying to think of how we can link from this to the next thing that I'm going to talk about. Now, who was it that stepped in for Thomas Markle in order to walk Meghan down the aisle?
Prince Charles. And
what has Prince Charles had this week, which also Camilla had this week, which the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh have also had?
They have had their first COVID vaccinations, we found out.
Along with 13 million other people. Were you 13 million now in the UK? I can't remember, but quite a few.
I mean, we're making huge strides, aren't we? Which is one bit of good news.
Yes, for all of us hating the lockdown, you can go faster if you like. If you've got more jabs, you want to put them into more people's arms, just do it, because actually we're all ready for this lockdown to be over.
Yes, we definitely are.
So
this follows the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh making it public that they had their vaccinations. Now we've had it made public that Charles and Camilla have had theirs. We've heard William talk about the injection program, and I think this is all part of a drive by the royal family to instill confidence in the public that that the program is safe and that people should go ahead and get their jabs when they're called up to do so.
Absolutely. And they haven't had it ahead of time. The Queen had it when the over 80s were getting it. Of course, she's 94 now, soon to be 95. Charles and Camilla got it when the over 70s were getting it, because she is 73, he's 72. So, yeah, anyway, nothing more to say. We don't know whether it was the Pfizer jab. We don't know whether it was the AstraZeneca jab. We know that, I think they did say it was the first jab, didn't they? We didn't get that clarity on the Queen, but this is their first.
We did, and I don't think they would ever make it public which jab they'd had, because they don't want people saying, "Oh, I want that one because
I want that one because the Queen had that one." Please, thank you very much.
But remember, they did a visit last year to a vaccination centre, and during that visit, Charles said that he was way down the list to have the vaccination, and I think it shows just how far and how fast we've wrapped through the numbers. We're now at that stage. Yeah, we're
now at their age, and then we go down to the 50s and 60-year-olds, I think, next, which presumably means Princess Anne will get hers, and Prince Andrew, dare I say it. Let's just skip the Prince Andrew point and chat about the fact that he is now a grandfather for the first time.
That's how you've segued into that.
There's a link, wasn't it?
I wondered where you were going there.
Yeah.
Yes. So this was some happy news that came on Tuesday, that Princess Eugenie and her husband Jack Brooksbank had a baby boy at 8:55 a.m. Weighing 8 pounds and 1 ounce, and they had him at the Portland.
No name yet.
No name yet, but the bookies are having fun putting out emails with their tips, aren't they?
Yes, we had, what is it? Well, actually, before we discussed last week, there might have been an Elizabeth, but we can discount all the girls' names now. We know that Boris is at the very bottom of the list. Piers, as in Piers Morgan, is at the very bottom of the list as well. But up the top is, I've forgotten now, was it Arthur?
Yes.
Yes. Arthur and something else. I mean, someone said to me the other day, do bookies ever get this right? Is there any point in us discussing what the bookies think they're going to call their kid, because only they know what they're going to call their kid, and they might have discussed it with Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew, who knows, but the bookies don't know.
But if you remember when we were standing for many hours outside the Lindo wing with airtime to fill, that speculation over names gave you at least something to say for a while. So
yeah, quite so. And also, I think that there's a way that they can track if a lot of bets are put on in a certain shop in a certain area. I think they can sometimes use that as maybe someone in the household knows something that we don't. So anyhow, we have a new baby. Sarah Ferguson hasn't put a comment up. There was a little picture. Should we show the picture?
yeah, a lovely little picture, and under it, Princess Eugenie on Instagram had put 3 blue hearts. So that was very sweet. That was her sort of personal way of announcing it. And he was born at the Portland, which is where Eugenie and her sister Beatrice were both born, and of course where Archie was born.
Yes, although they weren't forthcoming with that information in the same way.
No.
Somebody did put on my social media this week, where is all the braying for her to do a photo call and all the rest of it, which of course there has been none. I think they were highlighting the difference between Meghan and Eugenie. I think a lot of it just comes down to profile. Meghan and Harry were very, very high profile. Princess Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank aren't.
Yeah, I mean, there were photographs of Eugenie and Beatrice on the steps of the Portland when they were born with their parents. I don't know, if we weren't living in COVID times, would there have been more of a push for that to have happened or not? I mean, I think at the moment there is no way they would want huge numbers of media gathering outside a hospital.
Together really, really closely. Do you remember, like when we did the Lindo wing, how closely gathered we were, literally sticking to one another, broadcasting within all our breaths, going over one another. These were pre-COVID days. I should point out that's not going to happen. I have
to say, it was a snowy day in London on Tuesday, so I was quite thankful that we weren't spending many hours outside the Portland.
Yes, we're awaiting a name, and that's all that's left. Maybe we'll get a picture as well. Was it Meghan and Harry who started the picture of little fingers and clutching fingers thing?
Yes, there was one photo they put up, wasn't there, where it was Archie's feet against the flowers.
The flowers, the forget-me-nots, Diana's favourite flowers. Yes. Yeah.
We do know, however, that the Queen and Duke of Edinburgh are delighted by the news, as of course they would be, and it is a 9th great-grandchild for them, and you can list them all.
Oh, 9th, what, in order, or just I tell you, I can probably do them in order. So let's do them in order of importance. We've got here we go. So William's kids are called George, Charlotte, Louis. 3. We've got to get to 9. Eugenie's now got unnamed child. Don't need to know his name. So that's 4. Yeah. Then there's Savannah and Isla, who are I've actually gone away from the line of succession now, but Savannah and Isla, who are Peter Norton Phillips's kids.
Yeah.
Then Zara and Mike Tyndall have Lena and Mia.
Yeah.
And that's it. Oh no, Viscount James, Viscount 7, James, and Lady Louise.
No, they're grandchildren. You've missed off Archie.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to get him
in real trouble. Layers. In real trouble on social media for that.
So many layers of grandchildren, and of course Archie. Now, one thing I could point out to you actually. Now, if you go into my social media, in fact, we'll show you the picture here if you're watching on YouTube. On my Twitter, I took a screen grab of the line of succession and sort of showed you where the new baby will fit in that line of succession. Now, beneath Archie, of course, because the line of succession goes Charles, William, George, Charlotte, Louis, Harry, Archie, Andrew, Beatrice, then Eugenie, then new child of Eugenie, which means that poor old Prince Edward has been bumped down from number 11 to number 12.
Yep. You did
will see from the very crude picture that I put on Twitter.
Yes, artistic.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Right, so let's get away from children's names because that always confuses me, and I always lose on that one. I lose, you win whenever it comes to naming all the Queen's children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren.
You did send me a very hurried message the other day when we thought it was about to happen, saying, what number?
9, number 9. Right. Well, where are we going next? What do you want to talk about next? Actually, on my list, I have got. I think we should talk about this. You don't know what this is, do you? But if you're watching on if you're watching on YouTube right now, you are seeing a picture of Princess Anne's living room. Now, Princess Anne's living room has been under a big topic of conversation. I don't know why. I mean, maybe we just get a rare glimpse into a normal-looking living room that hasn't been tidied and spruced up. But this was a tweet and an Instagram post that the royal family put out on Anne's behalf. She's patron of Scottish rugby. Scotland, if you're a fan of rugby union, you will know that in the Six Nations, they beat England for the first time since 1983 at Twickenham. And Princess Anne is patron of Scottish rugby. So we got a glimpse into her living room.
Yeah, we did. Oh my good grief. I mean, this picture is charming, but really quite stressful. I mean, there's just stuff everywhere. It is definitely lived in, homely, cozy, comfy. It's really lovely, but it is just her at home. It's not, no airs and graces. It hasn't been tidied up. It's just very lived in. But there was too much stuff for me.
And what's wrong with lived in?
No, lived in is good. It's just all the knickknacks.
Right. Like the porcelain dog in front of the TV and the books on the table. Now, there was a guide, the Field Guide to Birds of Britain and Europe, I think. There's also a book on dogs of England or something like that. And
yeah, people were picking out really nice details on social media, and there was a photo of Zara at her christening.
With Peter Phillips in the picture as well, I think. Why?
There was just too much stuff.
Yeah, actually, see on our ITV News app, which I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, you can download it from any good app store. There is a little feature on there that lets you see what the most read story is. Nothing unique about that. A lot of websites have the most read story. Now, for days on end, it was in position number 1 and 2. Just like, not just on the Saturday when I popped it in there, it was there for Saturday and Sunday and Monday and a bit of Tuesday as well. I should probably check now to see if it's still there. But there were so many people were interested in Princess Anne's living room. I mean,
I think this is because this goes back to what we were saying last week when we were talking about the documentary and we were talking about Kate being personal about feeling exhausted. People really like it when the royals are, expose some of their personality and show, the personal side of themselves. People don't want the sort of, glossy, perfect impression of people. They want to see the real side of them. And I think there was something really, real about that living room.
It's kind of very Princess Anne as well. She wouldn't go to the trouble of sprucing it up just for a photo call. And
everything. I mean, those sofas. I mean, they've been around a while.
What colour would you describe those sofas? Coral. I saw someone red. Coral, not red.
And floral.
Floral pattern. I mean, floral. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure there were lots of sofas of that very design in living rooms across the United Kingdom. Would I find one in your house?
No, mine are dark blue.
Dark blue, right? So no coral with floral patterns for you.
No, and not here either.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, actually, that one's grey, which is obviously the thing.
Listen,
I feel like we probably spent a bit too much time talking about Princess Anne's living room, but
we're just giving the people what they want. You've
just given the people what they want. I just had to check on the app to see whether the story's still there. It's actually not. So it's less than a week afterwards. It actually is finally people have stopped reading about it. Now, one story that we did have up on our website, in fact, The Guardian first put up on their website, was about the Queen. I have a question for you, Lizzie. What's the difference between royal assent and Queen's consent?
I knew you were going to ask that.
Do you want me to help you? So royal assent is what happens when a piece of legislation has passed through the House of Commons and the House of Lords, therefore it's cleared its parliamentary hurdles. Then there's a formality. It goes to the Queen for royal assent. That's the moment the bill becomes law. It's formal, happens all the time.
Queen's consent, I can answer.
Yeah, so this is royal assent. Now, there's something else called Queen's Consent. Now,
that's when it is about matters that would affect the Crown interests, including personal property and personal interests of the monarch.
So, people didn't really know about this, but it's existed for a long time. There's a piece of legislation that the government wants to push through Parliament, and there's something in it that might affect the Queen's interests, financial being one of them, then the Queen has to be notified. Now, technically, I suppose she could say, no, sorry, I want to withdraw that. But the palace said in a statement quite clearly, didn't they? Consent is always given.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
So the Guardian ran a story that in 1973, once the Queen had been notified of some legislation, which was about transparency in companies reporting, etc., that might affect the Queen's personal investments, her private wealth, nothing to do with the public wealth that pays for her sort of duties as head of state, but the investments that she's made as a private individual. And the Guardian claims that they've seen notes from the National Archives which have indicated, and I must say clearly here, we haven't seen these notes, we've read them in the Guardian, that the Queen sent her lawyer to one of the government departments to say to them, actually, would you mind doing something about this? It could be a little bit embarrassing for the Queen.
Yeah, the Buckingham Palace have rejected these suggestions though, and I'll just read a bit of the statement, which says, from a spokesperson, that Queen's consent is a parliamentary process with the role of sovereign purely formal. Consent is always granted by the monarch where requested by government. Any assertion that the sovereign has blocked legislation is simply incorrect. Now,
there's an interesting thing there. They, as you just read, they said blocked. Any assertion the Queen has blocked legislation. As far as I can tell from the Guardian article, they were never accusing Buckingham Palace of blocking legislation. They were simply saying that the Queen's lawyer had lobbied the government to sort of change legislation, and they alleged that the government came up with this clause that would exempt governments and heads of state from being part of this legislation. I mean, there's a confusing factor that in 1973 it was the Edward Heath's Conservative government in power, but the actual bill didn't pass into law until 1976 when there was a Labour government in power under Harold Wilson. I nearly forgot his name for a minute, but you'll know Harold Wilson because he's in The Crown, the Queen's first Labour Prime Minister back in the 1960s. So it was, I thought, a little bit odd that the Buckingham Palace were denying something that they weren't even accused of.
Yeah, yes, I guess they did.
Yeah, exactly, and I wonder if you know, the Guardian had quite clearly just accused them of lobbying the government, and the government came back with this clause, but they hadn't accused them of blocking legislation. Anyway, the Guardian have gone on to have other reports there about how both the Queen and Prince Charles, isn't it, gets to have notification of laws. And I suppose there is a question mark over what does that mean for British democracy? What does it mean for our constitutional monarchy, who should be apolitical, should sit above politics? And, you know, why should the Queen be able to have a representative lobby government to change a piece of legislation?
Yeah, they followed up with various stories in the week, didn't they, about what she had potentially vetted around transport and monuments, etc. But yeah, I suppose the point of the story is in, you know, that she sits above.
Yes. Yeah, and should sit above it. And we'll see where that story goes. And if the National Archives ever reopens after the COVID pandemic, I think we might sort of pop down there and see if we can get hold of these notes ourselves, because they're not.
So we called the National Archives actually, and they're closed because of the pandemic at the moment. And the papers that the Guardian are referring to that they've got hold of haven't been digitized, so they must have popped in when they were still open and had these documents for a while, but we've only had sight of them via the Guardian at the moment.
Right down to the Guardian, and you won't be surprised to learn that the Republic, the pressure group which campaigns for Britain to not have a monarchy, was saying this was an abuse of power, and were obviously quite angry about it. Shall we talk about nurses? We should probably have a listen to William and Kate before we wrap up, shouldn't we? If we haven't talked about them yet. Talked about Harry and Meghan, talked about the Queen, talked about Princess Anne, Charles, Camilla, and various others, and all the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, but we haven't talked about William and Kate.
Yeah, so William and Kate this week, they were together for a video call with nurses, and one of the nurses that they spoke to had made a video diary of a day during the pandemic, and they were sort of reflecting on her experiences and just sort of really thanking and praising them for all the work that they had been doing. They're obviously very conscious that that their conversations are being held with people that are very involved in the pandemic at the moment.
Thank you so much for the video. It's so interesting to see what a typical day is like for yourself.
I think it gave like a good insight as to what we do in a day. This is the job that I was meant to do.
In your video, you talked about not ideal I think, nursing in a pandemic.
Especially seeing it through a pandemic, like you don't have the families there to support your patients and you have to give them so much more.
The training you get in Ulster prepares you so well that when you hit the field, you just go on to automatic. Your focus is on your patient and you forget about the fear.
Do you see any positives coming out from studying during this time? Because it is unique. What do you think?
It's been a really amazing experience that we've been able to go out and help during the pandemic. And like some of the things that we've seen, nurses that have been qualified 20, 30 years haven't seen. So we're all learning new together, and I think the experiences that we've learned and the knowledge that we've gained we'll be able to carry on through our whole nursing career.
And you've got one more year to go, have you?
Yeah, one more year.
Fantastic. Well, let's hope things get back to normal.
COVID-free year, please, for you guys.
As Lizzie said, there were students from Ulster University, and I think, and again, this is the bread and butter of Royal Staff at the moment, is thanking frontline workers for everything that they're doing, and we had more of that. We've got some developments with the Duchess of Cornwall's reading room coming up this week. We'll probably discuss it in more detail in next week's podcast. But we were told this week that that's going pretty well, the reading room on Instagram. If you go and have a look at it, it's got something close to 100,000 followers already, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, we know that people have, there's been a huge uptick in the amount people are reading during lockdown, obviously, because there is not much else to do. But this week, and I should have included this in the rundown, they showed on the reading room, they had a chat, or a sort of, I mean, I guess she wasn't chatting to anyone, she just did a video message from Daisy Edgar-Jones, who is going to play Kaya, the lead character in Where the Crawdads Sing, the Delia Owens book. And that was one of the books that Camilla chose for her first season of the reading room. So Daisy did a message about playing Kaya and the role for Camilla's reading room, which we can take a look at.
Hello, my name's Daisy Edgar-Jones. I first read this incredible book back in August 2020 when I was auditioning for the role of Kaya. And I just fell so deeply in love with the world that Delia created. She has such a poetry to her writing, and her characters are so incredibly special and deep and complex, particularly Kaya, of course. I would describe Kaya as fiercely resilient, wonderfully curious and strong. And I just feel so privileged and excited to be able to be playing her.
Where the Crawdads Sing is being made into a film. I think I'd read somewhere there was an English actor in it. It's coming up, but everyone that I've spoken to who's read the book has said it's really, really good. So I think I might actually give it a go.
Yeah, it's a lovely book, and it's been hugely popular, and it's done incredibly well. And it's probably no surprise it's being made into a film. And Daisy,
a girl who lives in the marshes in, where is it set? Southern America.
Daisy was sort of shot to fame for her role in Normal People, which was hugely popular last year. So yeah. So
actually, that means that the Duchess of Cornwall's reading room has overtaken ITV News Royals on Instagram. So we've got a bit of catching up to do now with the Duchess of Cornwall's reading room, such as the reach that she has. But anyway, if you're watching this and you're not following ITV News Royals, then now is your opportunity to do so. So there we are. I just showed you what's on our page. It was a lovely picture there of everything that we have on our page, which of course you'll only see if you're listening to this on YouTube. If you're watching, sorry, on YouTube. If you're listening to us on other devices, podcasts and things, just go to @ITV News Royals and you can see all the pictures and stories that we post on there. Thank you for watching. An eclectic week, I think, this week. Yeah, living rooms, babies, court cases, everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, and absolutely nothing that I can talk about for next week. There we go.
As per normal.
As per normal.
There we go. If you've got any comments, suggestions, if you want to say nice things, or as people often do on social media, horrible things, and I won't read them. But thank you for watching, listening, whatever you're doing. And we will see you same place, same time next week.